Welcome everyone to the Backgammon Winning Women's first event under our new name. And tonight's event is going to be critical cube choices, which have been actually taken from the tournament that we had just a few weeks ago, the mixed doubles online tournament. They were cube choices that were actually made by those playing. And we're very excited tonight to have Kent Goulding and Karen Davis to walk us through. Karen is not feeling well, so she's not going to speak unless she has to. But I just wanted to give a brief introduction of both of them. Both Kent and Karen are they're in the Backgammon Hall of Fame, and Kent was inducted in 2015. His citation sums it up best, noting that he is esteemed as a backgammon player, publisher, director, organizer, witty auctioneer. And he introduced the first U.S. backgammon rating system, and as director of the World Cup, he instituted the use of clocks and recorded matches. He was voted to the Giants of Backgammon 6 consecutive times from its inception, and he's published 12 issues of Backgammon with the Champions between 81 and 82. Karen is one of the foremost women players in the world and a co-founder of Backgammon Winning Women, which is our not-for-profit organization which promotes women's participation, place, and preeminence in competitive backgammon. She was a member of the board of directors of the U.S. Backgammon Federation since 2019 at its inception, and stepped down just this past year. She created Primetime Backgammon magazine, and her accomplishments include so many tournaments and Giants of Backgammon 64 lists, BMAB, and on and on and on. So both of them are more than qualified to be speaking tonight about this. And I'm going to turn it over to you now, Kent. And we are really looking forward to it because we all know, and I guess we should start by saying, most things are won with the cube. Is that fair to say, Kent?
Yeah, probably.
So it's all yours.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. I was waiting for one more word. Thank everybody involved with Backgammon Winning Women. It's been an honor to be here. Thanks very much for Karen Davis, who a trusted partner. We've done a bunch of doubles playing. I really enjoy it, and I think we bring constructive views to each other. I think our whole is better than the sum of our parts, which is not always easy in doubles. There, things can, I've had doubles partners where I was fairly certain the two of us together played worse than one or the other of us would have been playing alone. In any event, there are 13 cube decisions that came up during our various matches that we thought at least worthy of comment. I'm going to go through them, analyzing each one, giving what we thought and what the XG analysis shows the correct decision was. You'll note when we get to the first position that there are little red numbers off in the corner. If you have questions, you can note the position number, number 1, number 2, number 3, and send a chat saying, I have a question about position 1, or I have a question about position 2. And then at the end of the presentation, as time allows, we'll go through and attempt to answer questions.
Actually, we'd appreciate it. I'm going to be monitoring that section, and all you should do is ask your question and just make sure you put the number as to which slide it is so we can go back to that slide. And then at the end, we will go through them.
Okay, a few comments that we wanted to stick out here just on general thinking about the cube. Every roll is a new cube decision. So you should always take time to think about doubling. This is, I've said this, I don't know who I picked it up from originally, either Paul McGreal or Kit Woolsey or the three of us talking to each other, but it can't be overstated. Whether you're playing doubles or whether you're playing regular backgammon, it should just be part of your pre-roll checklist. Is it my turn? Did my opponent hit the clock? Is the position legal? And do I have access to the cube? And if I do, should I at least be thinking about doubling it, turning it? Then in terms of analyzing the position, whether you want to double or not double, one general guideline to run through is Pratt. You look at the position. How am I doing in the position? Is it better? Is it worse? Is it clearly better? The race, check the race. Sometimes the race doesn't matter, but usually it does. Knowing whether you're ahead or behind in the race. And then are there threats? Is something going to happen this turn which changes things fairly dramatically in my favor. And in general, if you're ahead in 2 or 3 of these Pratt categories, you should strongly be considering doubling. If you're ahead in all 3, you should almost certainly be doubling. Match score considerations always play a part when you're playing tournament backgammon. And even if you think they're not a big deal, and we'll see one of these creep in later in the presentation, even if the score is, 1-0 to 15 or whatever, we won't see any of those here, but they exist. Once the cube starts getting higher, the least little match score can have an enormous impact on what would normally be a double a take or a no double a take. So when you're playing matches, you should always have the match score in mind. In general, if you're leading in the match, you don't want to put as many points up for grabs as otherwise, so you should tend to be conservative. In particular, if you're in a gammon save situation where gammons help your opponent but don't help you, you generally don't want to be messing with doubling, and you may not want to be taking. So that should creep in. And then if you're behind in the match, generally speaking, you want to jack the cube up more quickly than you would if it was even, or if you were playing unlimited games, particularly in gammon go situations. So gammon go doesn't just mean you're behind. Gammon go means you're behind, and a gammon is particularly valuable to you. And we'll see at least one example of that, I think, or close. And then there's the Woolsey's Law. Kit and Karen and I all played backgammon together. I don't want to embarrass any of us, but pretty darn close to 50 years ago, maybe a little less. And early on, there weren't any books to speak of that were worth anything back then. We're talking about maybe the mid-1970s. Kit at our local club came up with the idea, well, if you're thinking about doubling, walk around the table to your opponent's side of the board. And Kit would actually do that. He'd get out of his chair and walk around and stand behind his opponent and look at the position. And looking at it from your opponent's side of the board, if you wouldn't snap it up, if you were doubled and just grab, if you would think seriously about passing, then that's it. Go back to your side of the board and double. It's his problem, not yours. All right, let's get into it. Here we're 4 away, 3 away, and which is 5 to 6 playing to 9. Karen and I are on roll playing the yellow pieces. Oh, what's going on? Should we be doubling, and should they be taking? It's okay. Here's some at this match score. Once again, look at the match score. It's important. With no gammons, it's sort of counterintuitive. With no gammons, the leader actually takes many passes. He can take down to 20% as opposed to closer to 25%. So there's no need to make close doubles if your opponent has 3 to go and you have 4 to go.
Now, Ken, I'm going to interrupt you for a minute. Can you explain what 4 away, 3 away means?
Okay, you have 4 points to go to win the match. Your opponent has 3 points to go to win the match. Look here, right in the middle, it says 4 away, 3 away in green. And then in parentheses, the score is 5 to 6 playing to 9. So you have 5 points playing to 9, which means you need 4 points to win. And your opponent has 3 points playing to 9, which he only needs 3 points to win. And at that score, it's a little bit counterintuitive that the person who's leading, if there are no gammons involved, will actually take more often than if it was 0-0 to 9, just because the way the match scores work out. And this is such a position. So if there's no gammons involved, the person trailing doesn't need to be real quick to double because their opponent's going to take more often than usual, which is counterintuitive looking at the score. If gammons are a threat, the person who only has 3 to go while you have 4 to go will actually pass certain positions, which would be money takes. The difficult mathematical reason would be you look through the match equity table, you see what you win, what you lose, how many gammons you win, how many gammons you lose. And all the odds get twisted away from normal depending on the match score. This stuff can be real tricky. We don't need to get into the weeds with it right this second. Just be aware of it. So in this actual position, if there are gammons, we should be anxious to double. If there are no gammons, we should be very cautious about doubling because he's probably going to take next turn or the turn after, wait until we have a bigger threat. We assessed that we misjudged and did not double. And in fact, it's a fairly solid double. The 0.082, see the green check mark, no double, and then minus 0.082 at the outside there. That means if you don't double, you've made a 0.082 error. That's a pretty big error. And the reason it's an error here, and you see underlined in red in the middle of the screen, we've got over 10% of the games we're going to win gammons. And that's a lot more than I judged at the table. For money, let me get that thing out of my clues, go away. For money, this is actually not a double and an easy take. But because of the match score, the gammons are accentuated, and that makes it a solid double and still a take, although not a huge take. So we did not double. Where's my, all right, how have I turned off my, am I still here?
Yeah, yep, you're still here. You're good.
Why is my screen not toggling? Did I turn something off that I shouldn't have?
Looks okay on my end.
All right, what have I done? I hit up and down. It's not going up and down. Sorry, guys.
You know what you can do is,
there we go.
yeah, there you go.
All right, finally got it working again. Here's one with playing against this. This was one that I'm very proud of us for catching, that we did not make an error here. We were playing against Steve and Marianne. It's the first game of a 9-point match. We're on roll. We're way behind in the race. They've got a 4-point board. We've got a 2-point board. They've got one checker back. He's not immediately constrained. I mean, he can't jump right out, but 1-6 and 2-5 get him out. And we're not threatening to attack that checker. But we stopped to think about, well, what's the position going to look like next turn? A lot of players look at what they can do this turn, which is a good start. But the real idea of a threat is what's it going to look like, not just after I roll, but what after my opponent rolls, and then it's my turn again. We could double this turn, or we could wait, not just once we roll, we can't double. They have to roll as well. So we have to envision what's going to happen. We roll and they roll. And this position is one that the vast majority of players, unless they are truly experts, would skip right over this position and not even think about turning the cube. Now, in fact, we actually do have a threat. We have a threat to slot our 9-point. Any 5, any 4 slots our 9-point. Even if, say, we roll a 4-3, we don't play safe with a 4-3 and take our block from the 14-point around to the 7-point and play safe, which most people would do without thinking. They wouldn't stop and think. What if we slot the 9-point with a 4 and then play the 3 from the 14 to 11? Now that leaves a direct shot. They'll have an ace shooting at the midpoint. They'll also have ace 6 and 2-5 to hit our blot on the 9-point. But what if they don't roll an ace or a 2-5? That's 13 numbers. 23 numbers aren't an ace or a 2-5, in which case we've got a 6-point prime slotted with 31 numbers that fill it in. We've basically won the game effectively. So if we play our next roll correctly and slot our 9-point and they don't hit us, we basically just won the game. So look at it. Look at 2-move combinations, me, then he, and then what's happening. Any 5 or 4 we roll, we slot. Any single one. Some of our 5s and 4s actually make the 9-point. With every single one we slot, most of them leave a single direct shot. But if they miss that direct shot, we're in an overwhelming position. And in fact, it is a whopper not to double. That 0.11 that the big red arrow is pointing to, that's a blunder. That's a big, big mistake. And even though it looks innocent and you could easily skip right over it, it would be a huge error had we not doubled there. In fact,
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah. We did double and they took, and I believe we built the prime and went on to win, but that's irrelevant. The main point is we were alert enough to spot that and we made the double, and it's not a fine tuning thing. It's a huge blunder not to double there. And of course they had a very easy take. This one this is sort of a, once again, this is a we roll, they roll. And we kind of got this wrong. It might be more my fault than Karen's. We're behind in the race. That's bad. They've only got one checker and it's almost escaped. That's bad. We're stuck on their 4 point and they've got us nicely blocked, but not permanently blocked. We can wiggle out of there, but we can't freely dance out of there. They got a 3 point board. We've got a 3 point board. We have a bunch of numbers which build our 5 point, but even if we build our 5 point and they come back in again, maybe that's a good time to double. What if we roll a 6? If we roll a 6, we have to run right by them with one of our checkers. And then what? That's just going to be a total mess. We're almost losing if we roll a 6. Or so I thought. In fact, if you look more closely, any combinations 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, and 5s are going to make our 5 point. That's a big, big plus. Unless they roll a joker, we will have won. If we roll a 6, what do we do with them? Well, we hit with all of our 6s, whatever the companion number is, we hit with, except for double 6s, which is a total mess. Any other 6, whether it's 6-1, 6-2, 6-3, 6-4, 6-5, we should hit that blot and challenge them to hit back. They may have 15 or 17 or even 19 return shots, maybe half, but not 100%. Half the time they're not going to hit us back. In which case we've slotted our 5 point. We're now threatening to close it and continue attacking their checker. If it's entered on our 1 and 2, maybe prime it. If it's still in the bar, we can just cover our 5 point and dance home. So this is actually a pretty solid double. It's not as big. By the way, it's not nearly as big a mistake not to double here as it was the turn before, even though this one looks a lot more volatile. We didn't double, and that was a mistake. We should have. This is a horse of a different color. Here, 3 away, 6 away means if we're playing to 9, we actually have 6, so we need 3 more points to win the match. And they actually have 3, so they need 6 more points to win the match, which means we should be a little gun shy about doubling. In fact, we didn't double, but it wasn't because I didn't think we were good enough. We didn't double because I thought we could win. We had a relatively safe chance to win a gammon. They've got 1 in the air. We can close our 3 point. That'll give us, a 5 out of 6 point prime, a 6 prime with a hole near the back of it, and chances to keep attacking them. In reality, it's not too good. It's a double and a very big pass. The little red arrow pointing down here to the 0.039. That's not that it's not quite that good. That's the error that we made by not doubling. But the reason it's so small is because we're close to being too good to double. We should not double because we should be playing for a gammon. Take one little change. Here's the position now. Take the 3rd checker on our 20 point, on their 5 point, and move it out 4 pips. Now, that one little change, which frees up 1 more checker and gives us a little more flexibility, that one little change turns it into too good to double. We should keep playing because we have a much better chance of winning a gammon, and we should just go for that. This is a good thing for almost any level of player. Should we be? We've been doubled, and we're leading 1-0, but I've got the score backwards. Little curious here. I may have something backwards. In any event, what's going on with the cube here? Should we be doubling, and should they be taking? And I think I was a little bit reluctant to yield the cube because of the pip count, but in fact, it's a, well, you can use the Keith count. The Keith count comes into play when you've got not pure positions where you're checked, where there's holes on in your board or extra checkers on your ace and deuce point, which indicates the pip count isn't really the pip count. The pip count's a little differently. Keith count's a little bit complicated. You look at each side, you take their pip count, you add 2 pips for every extra checker they have on their ace point of greater than 1. So in this case, we have 2 checkers on our ace point, so we add 2 pips to our count for that. They have 3 checkers on their ace point, so they add 4 pips for that. They have a 3rd checker on their 3 point, that doesn't count. We both have no more than 1 checker on our 2 point, that doesn't count. We have a hole on our 5 point, that adds a pip. Then you add all that up, then you divide your pip count by 7, you subtract the remainder, you add that to your pip count, that gives you your Keith count. If you're ahead by 4, by no more than 4, your opponent, you should double. If you're ahead by no more than 3, you should redouble. And if your opponent is within 2 or greater, he should take. Go through all that if you like. And this turns into, by Keith count, redouble and take. It's a very strong redouble and a very strong take. And I think we missed the double here. If you change the score a little bit, it's a tiny redouble if we're leading 2-0, and it's a blundered redouble if we're leading 3-0. That goes into the cube's going to 4, it might go to 8, and all of a sudden our 2-0 lead or our 3-0 lead don't really amount to much at all. So much depends on this one game. Another way to look at it, if all that Keith count stuff was too darn confusing, and it is for me, here's the same pip count down below. I've backed up 1 checker from the 1 point to the 2 point. I've moved 1 checker forward from the 6 to the 5 point. Now our position is very, very smooth. And yeah, there's a little bit of wastage with the 2nd checker on the 2 point, but there's no holes. We're going to get to use the majority of our pips. And if you work the Keith count here, it turns out to be a big double and a pass. For more reference, if you've got a closed board versus a closed board with no extra checkers, you're roughly a 2-to-1 favorite, a little less, 65.5 to 34.5% edge. That's with an even pip count. If our position looked exactly like Brown's position at the top, that's a double and a take. Now, if you take a checker off, which I did, I took a checker off my ace point, that's 1 pip, and then move 2 pips more, moving a checker from your 6 and your 4. This looks very similar. We're up 3 pips, only 3 pips, but it's just the barest of takes. And having a general idea that you don't need to be up a huge number of pips as the race gets closer, and even 1 checker can be worth several percent, that if there's nothing wastage, this is a very powerful double, and it's a borderline take pass, even though we're only up 3 pips. That's a little reference point that you should store away. Here's a whole altogether different situation. We're trailing 1 to 5, playing to 9, which means we need 8, they need 4. Should we be doubling? We are anxious to double, particularly if they're gammons. Now here we have some gammons. They've got a checker on the bar. We've got a 4-point board, and we have 5 more checkers to see, bearing down on our open points. So we've got plenty of checkers here to potentially close them out. If we can close them out, i.e. blitz them, then we should have a room to wiggle our back checkers out and come around and just routinely gammon them. If we close out 1 checker here, we're a pretty big favorite to gammon them with all these checkers they have in the outfield. So with the match score as it is, yeah, you should be thinking strongly about doubling, and they should be thinking about passing. A little history here. At the time, going back 1 roll, their position was the same with a checker on the bar, but our last roll was 5-4, bringing 2 checkers off our midpoint to our 9 and 8. Then they danced again. So the roll before, we had 2 checkers on our midpoint, everything else was the same. And we talked about doubling. And of course, they could hear us talking about doubling. And we decided we didn't have a big enough threat. We needed to get closer to home, do something better. Then if they danced again, we could double. So we rolled a 5-4. We brought 2 builders down. So now we've got a serious threat to attack them if they come in or if they don't. And they danced again. And now, having talked about it, we doubled right away, and they went into a trance. And they're very good players. And Joe Russell is every bit as good a player as I am, and maybe better. He's a top player. And he looked at this, and he looked at the match score, and they passed. And I'm not sure I wouldn't have passed as well. In fact, it is a mega take. It's a huge take, and it's only barely a double. And I think that has to do with, well, we do have 25% gammons here, but their position is strong enough that unless we close them out, they are in great shape. And in fact, they're going to win almost 45% of the games. And even with our gammon threat, that's more than enough, despite the match score, to have a very easy take. But we double with a threat. We've got a huge threat. The match score is such that they should be shy about taking, but they were too shy. By the way, change this. See our back checkers? Move 1 back checker out 6 pips. Everything else is the same. And then it's a big double and a small pass. So these little teeny judgment things are magnified hugely, both based on match score and, of course, the doubling cube. This is why so much equity is up for grabs with the doubling cube, as opposed to checker plays. And the shorter the match gets, the more exaggerated that becomes. Here's another one. We're back to 3-point games. We started out with a 3-point game. Now here we're ahead 3-0, playing against Steve Sax and Marianne, another super duper strong player, Steve Sax. And what's going on here? You know, should we be doubling and should we be taking? Some things to think about when you're a 3-point holding game. First of all, I believe it was Stick Rice. I didn't confirm that, but I'm pretty sure, who came up with a great saying, 3-point holding games are almost always almost takes, which means they're all passes. And but it depends on just what's going on with your 3-point holding game. In this case, all 15 checkers we have are in front of their anchor. That's good news and bad news. The good news is that it means we can flexibly prime them or blockade them better. We have 2 gaps in front of their anchor. That's bad news. That's almost like they're playing a phantom back game. We've got to fill in those gaps, or those gaps might make it very difficult for us to come home safely as the position develops. The race is close. We're actually behind by 3 pips. That's a good reason not to double. 3-point games you can't evaluate just on the race, but the race does play a part. So playing a 3-point game and being a pip or 2 ahead is a good indication that you should probably be taking. They have no checkers wasted on their side of the board yet. In fact, their position is pretty darn strong. If they happen to hit a fly shot or we leave a direct shot and they hit it, we're in pretty big trouble. That's the reception committee. The opponents have a good reception committee to receive any blots they hit. He has a little bit of time to wait before their board crushes or starts to crunch, in which case the reception committee gets worse and the race gets worse as they pile checkers on their 1 and 2 point. Those checkers aren't going to be borne off later with 1s and 2s. They're going to be borne off with 5s and 6s. So there's wasted pips. Most importantly, we have no big threat. What are we threatening to do? Well, we can't, we could roll a big doubles, perhaps, and fill in our points, and then maybe they've got a close pass. What if we just fill in our 5-point? Well, they may still have a take if the race is close. So I believe we correctly didn't double. And and in fact, it says no double, huge take. Look, the double 0.047. It's close, but it's no double, and their take 0.243 is huge. They don't have, if we double them here, they don't have any problem. It's basically a 70-30 contest. But we filled in a point, and they moved a little closer to home. Well, who did that help? We're still slightly behind in the race. We filled in the key gap on our 5 point, basically executing one of our partial threats. It's now easier for us to come home safely. Our incoming checkers are now more likely to be builders than be forced to be slotted into empty points. They're one roll closer to crunching and wasting pips. And now it's the smallest of doubles. 0.012 is tiny. It really doesn't make any difference. But we did not double. And we're sort of rewarded by not doubling because they rolled 4-4 and bounced out. Look what 4-4 does back here. 4-4 takes both of their back checkers and races into the outfield. And now the race is suddenly a problem. In fact, I believe we were behind. Somewhere along the way, we reached this position and they doubled us correctly. And we took. So now we've got the cube on 2. And several rolls later, this monster came up. And I could spend a lot of time on this, and we should. Now, Karen and I are leading 3-0 to 9, and we hold the cube on 2. What's going on? For money, this is a double and a pass. True, we only have 10 numbers, 2, 4, 6, 7. Yeah, we have 10 numbers, 6, 5, 6, 4, 5, 4, double sixes, double fives, double fours, that's 9 numbers, and double threes, that's 10 numbers. We only have 10 numbers that get us off, although of the other 26 numbers, most of them leave us off next turn almost no matter what. Then they have to roll, and they need 10 numbers if they get the chance at all. And if you do the math, that comes out to they're somewhere down around 22%. So they don't, here we are, here's all the numbers right here. Strong redouble, why? It's a money pass. They have less than 25% winning chances, and they probably have no chance to turn the cube because they're going to be a big underdog. Well, for money, they have no chance to turn the cube. No matter what we roll, they've only got 10 numbers that get off. They're not redoubling. At this score, there's no immediate wastage. In other words, we can use all four points. We need, in fact, we need 6, so we can use all 4 points. The problem here is there may or may not be a desperation redouble. If we don't get off, might they actually want to redouble when they've only got a 10 out of 36 chance of winning? And of course, because it's a money pass, it may be difficult for anybody, an expert, to figure out whether they should even take this or not. I mean, it's a money pass. A lot of players would just routinely pass it. Well, what's going on? We did redouble, which is correct by a lot. 2.278 is a lot. And they took, which is also correct by a lot, even though it's a money pass. The match score is twisting everything. We rolled 5-3. Look what 5-3 does. We take a 5 off and then play a checker to the ace point. So we've got 1 checker left on our ace point. Now I switched it around. We're looking at it from their side of the board. We've got 1 checker left on our ace point. They've got 1 on their 5 and 1 on their 4, which means they've only got 10 numbers that get off. If they don't get off, they lose. And now Steve and Marianne, well, Steve started going through various calculations, got a little bit tangled up with it, came to a reasonable conclusion that if I've only got 10 numbers out of 36 to win, why the heck should I double? So he did not double. All right, here's the answer. For money, it's absurd to turn the cube with only a 28% chance of winning. It's a great big beaver. You're just throwing money away. The match score is huge. We need 6 points, but if they redouble to 8, that's more than 6 points. There's 2 extra points there that we can't use, and they can. The way to get to the answer is to check the wretched match equity table. Now, first, you have to have a match equity table. You can find one if you've got your XG and go to the analyze match equity table. You can Google backgammon match equity table and look at it on your phone and find some perfectly good match equity tables. What you actually do, there's some math here. I'll try to skip through it. We can go more detail. If you double and if you don't double and lose, you're going to be behind 2 to go, 9 to go. What was the match? Yeah, the match is to 9. So if you don't double and lose, your opponent's going to have 7 points out of 9, only 2 to go, and you're going to still need all 9. And the match equity table tells you that means you've only got a 10% chance of winning. So you're only risking 10%. If you don't double and lose, you would have had 10%. If you double and lose, you've got 0. So you're risking 10%. Well, what do you gain? If you double and win, you pop up to 89%. Look at your match equity table. You're at Crawford, they're not. 1 away, Crawford 6 away. That's a big deal. That's almost 90%. If you don't double and win, you gain some, you get to being slightly ahead and 57%. So your gain from doubling is the difference from 57% and 89%. You subtract those two and you get the green 32% on the screen, which means you're getting 32 to 10 odds. So you can double when you're a big underdog. In fact, 32 to 10 translates to 23.8%. You only need 23.8% to turn the cube to 8 here. You have 10 numbers that win, that's 27.78%. So this is actually a huge redouble at this match score only. And Steve got a little bit tangled up with the numbers, realized it was bound to be close and did not redouble, but he missed the chance to make a hero's redouble, which also would have ended the match more quickly because they did not get off, and the match continued, although I believe we won fairly quickly. We were big favorites to pull it out. This is another, this is a partial application of O'Hagan's law here. What's going on? Position, race, threats. We're way behind in the race. So that's bad news. We are trailing in the match, which is a good reason, and behind 3-0 to 9 is a significant reason. If we double to 2, they're not going to be all that excited to send it back at 4, because we could then send it back at 8. And like last position, that's creating overage, and they don't want that. So we should be a little bit trigger happy. But do we have enough here? What's our threat? Well, looking at the board, we can hit the blot in the outfield. It's 7 or 8 away, some 8s, 5-3 is blocked. We could build our bar point, 6-3, 6-1, double 6s, double 5s attacks them. How does O'Hagan's law work? Now, look, using rose-colored glasses a bit because of the match score. O'Hagan's law is our position solid, and perhaps we're a little bit ahead without considering doubling? The answer is yes, we clearly have a better position here. Do we have market losing sequences? Market losing sequences mean we roll, they roll, and now if we double, they thank us and run out the door and pass. That we basically should have won 2 points or 4 points, and instead we're only winning 1. Yeah, we do. You know, the double 5s is a market losing sequence. I mean, double 4s bringing 2 checkers out and pointing on their bluff. There's a fair number of market losing sequences. Do we have 9 such sequences? And now you got to use your rose colored glasses a little bit. And if you go through some of the things, some of the doubles almost certainly lose our market, gives us strong position no matter what they roll. Hitting the outfield blot probably does it for us. Certainly if we hit the outfield blot and they dance, we've done it. And if we do nothing and they roll 5-5, their position goes to heck. And we have, you know, some roughly 9 or more approximate market losing sequences, which means we should double. Now, in reality, it's not quite a double, but it's very, very close. Here on the left is the actual match score, which is which? Eek. Yeah, on the left. Oh, it was a double. We didn't double, but it was a double because O'Hagan's law works because of the match score. On the right, it shows you if the score was 9 away, 9 away. In other words, 0-0, then it would be a very small no double. So we were right not to double at a normal match score. We were wrong not to double at this match score. Now, what happened? We rolled, we hit their outfield. Yeah, here it is. We hit the outfield blot. We rolled a 7. Then they came in with the ace, and pulled out to our bar point with the 4. Sort of see that happen. We rolled a 7, hit from the 21 to the 14. Then they came in with an ace, making our ace point, and used their 4 to come out to our bar point, resulting in this position. Now what's happening? Well, now it's pretty easy. Now we basically caught up in the race, but the race is not important. Now our threat is huge. We roll, they roll. We roll, we hit them on our bar point. With a bunch of rolls, we point on our bar point. What do we got? 6, 7, 8, 9, at least 9 rolls actually make it, and almost every roll hits loose, which means they're going to be shooting at 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. You know, they're going to be a huge underdog to hit us back, at which point they're dead. And they're particularly dead because once they get blockaded in, their position's terrible. It's going to be a mess. And even if they hit a shot with their ace point made and holes in their board, everything bad is going to happen. So this is a very, very powerful double now. Summarizing, we rolled a 7 and hit. They came in and out. Now we doubled a bit too late and they should pass, but they misjudged and took. And the biggest clue, I think I've already said, the 2 checkers out of play on their ace point just stretches their whole position too thin. We have significant priming chances. They have none. And once we win the priming battle, which we're about to do, everything's going to go to heck. Our gammon chances went way up and theirs went way down. That's it. Final takeaways. It's very important to listen to your partner and take advantage of the doubles format. You want to make sure you're on the same page as your partner, and you should sort of agree in advance. If we disagree on a play, if you like it a bit more than I like mine, go ahead, don't argue. Just do your partner's play, or your partner should make your play. Make a brief presentation why you think A, B, C, and then make sure you have some method to resolve ties and keep playing. Don't argue too much about it. And whatever you do, don't fight about it. Time management is also huge. Some of these things, and Karen and I got into a little too much time pressure throughout the tournament. And I think that's because we spent too much time discussing relatively trivial positions. I mean, if one of us likes to play an opening 4-3 one way and the other one likes us to play it the other, we should either agree in advance to alternate and just not talk about it, just keep going. We also learned a lot about looking to the future. There were several positions here which were huge. We roll, they roll. We got one right, we got one wrong. And that's a big deal. And then, as usual, every roll is a new cube decision, and the match score matters more than I can possibly explain. There we are, winning the actual live doubles at the Cherry Blossom Championship a few months ago. We got these gorgeous, colorful octopuses, which I like to call a squid. We won the squids, we won the doubles. We had a great time. Anybody have any questions? And thank you for listening.
I think all of us we're just spinning from all the information. Thank you. But there were a couple things. Marty, you made a comment. Do you want to expound on that? About how Keith counts?
Oh, right, lovely Keith counts. This is gonna make your head spin.
Marty, is Marty still here? Okay, anybody else have any questions? Go ahead.
Oh no, Marty's still here. I don't know if he wants to unmute himself, but.
Marty, what were you commenting on around the count?
He's muted.
He needs to unmute.
Oh, Marty, you have to unmute.
Okay, good. Well, let's see. So someone else had a comment that the Keith count looks complicated.
Yeah, it is.
And I commented that, okay, it is complicated, but if you can learn it, that's great, because it's way better than no formula at all. You know, and I use it myself.
Is there any way you
And-
could maybe slowly walk through it so we could all?
Yeah, let's see. Let me get my screen better than it is. Ugh. I don't want to, I can only see myself. How do I
Well, how about this position?
view? Well, I can't see anything yet.
Oh, all right.
Side by side, gallery. Okay, there we go. Now I can see. Okay, so, all right, slowly. So you can, it's a matter of, you gotta count for yourself and account for your opponent. So it's a matter of the raw pip count and then some adjustments, whereby you add units. They're not pips, they're Keith count units, really. So if you count White's pips, it's 30, what is it, 26, 32, 36, right? And because there's you can count, there are two pairs of 6 and 4, which is 20. It's 10 and 10, and then there's one next one on the 6. There's 2 on the 3, which is 6 more, and then there's 4 more. So 32 and 4 is 36. That's the raw the raw pip count. But then if you're on roll, which White is on roll here, then you have to, in this case, this position, you have to adjust two units upward. You have to add 1 for your blank 5 point. If you have any gap on your 6, 5, or 4, that costs you 1. So you have to add 1 for that gap on the 5 point. And any checker on your 2 or 1 point above the first checker on either point counts for 3. So you have to add 2 for the extra checker on your 1. Any extra checkers on your 2 and 1 point equal or count 3. And the first checker on your 2 and the first checker on your 1 just have their point value. So 36, and then you have to add this other number that's an adjustment for being on roll. So you have to divide your count so far, 36, by 7, and just take the integer part of that answer. So Ken said subtract the remainder. So it's not, you're not looking at 5 point something, right? Am I just totally wrong here? Wait a minute.
No, you're right so far.
Okay, right so far. So so 36, and then you divide 36 by 7 and you get 5. Wait a sec.
Yeah, you're going to
44 to 41. How am I going to get 44? Okay, wait a second. 26, 27. Okay, 26, 27, 33, and 6 is 39. There we go.
Yeah,
It's 39.
36.
Yeah, I just counted the raw pips wrong. So
add 5 and you get 44. There's the 44.
that's right. So
There's
that's
the
44, and then that's kind of what Ken said. And then the other position, well, it's 37 raw pips, and then all you need to do is add 4 more pips for each extra checker above the first on their 1 point. So that gives them 44, and then you don't add anything more to that. So don't 41, I mean. Yeah, it's four more, 37 and 4 is 41. So 37 and 4 is 41, is that right? 25, 34.
That's right.
37, 40, 41. They've got 41, and White has got 44. So okay, in a money game or an early match score, these adjustments are what you use.
So we have
Especially if the cube's below 4, let's say. So if it's going from 1 to 2, you can be ahead, you can have more units than they have, right? And you're in the doubling range if you have 4 more than them or less. So if they have 41 and it's an initial double in a money game or a money game like match score, you can give an initial double. You can, if you're less than that, you can even redouble if you only have 3 more.
I think some of the confusion, if that's the right word, are people who are not playing at your level is you do that in your head and it takes you guys 5 seconds. Some people are saying, well, I don't think I have enough time on the clock to be able to go through the process you described. So Jonah,
Right.
yeah, Jonah Sewald just talked about the word count method. Jonah, do you want to come on and just walk through that?
You have to find out how to unmute yourself.
I can unmute him. Hold on.
He sent a message that he's at work and can't.
Oh, we
Okay,
can't.
so,
Okay.
yeah, so well, let me read off what he wrote. It's in the comments if anybody wants to copy it down, but a formula devised by Jeff Ward for making cube decision in pure race games. It is a modification of the basic pip count designed to take into account elements of checkered distribution. Each player's word count is his pip count +2 for each checker more than 2 on the 1 point, -1 for each extra homeboard point compared to the opponent, +2 for each extra checker on the board compared to the opponent, plus a half a pip for each extra checker outside of the home board compared to the opponent. Then the player on roll increases his count by 10%.
I
Warded
would like to comment that let's go back to the Keith count.
Yeah, so the ward count is pretty good, okay? And I used to use it before things like Keith were out. I used to use it back in the 1980s, right? But the Keith count has been shown statistically to make fewer errors than the ward count. And the ward count in particular it tends to underestimate the effect of checkers outside the inner board.
I like
So
to
that's-
wrap all this up,
Yeah,
if I might, having been a visual backgammon player and an artistic backgammon player. And I am also very much a scientist and a mathematician and computer programmer. And I've been through a lot of the stuff. Don't be intimidated by this stuff. You can make it, as long as you know where the wastage comes from, you can make modest adjustments to whatever regular pip count racing formula you have, the 8, 9, 12 or whatever, 8%, ahead 8%, double, ahead 9%, redouble, behind 12% pass, something like that. If you're using that, that'll get you pretty close. And then make a visual adjustment or two. Our position on the bottom of the screen here, if my screen is still being shown, doesn't require any adjusting. That looks pretty smooth. There's nothing funny about my position. His position looks a little bit rotten. So whatever my pip count is probably pure. His pip count should be higher than it is because it's going to take more pips to get all those checkers off. So make some mild adjustment and that'll get you in the ballpark. And also knowing certain just vague key situations, a closed board versus a closed board, you're 65.5% to win with 0 pip advantage. Take a checker off, add another pip or 2, and he's almost got a pass. Tuck that away in the back of your brain, and you'll be able to blunder through positions like this one, and you won't be far off.
KG?
Also, count doesn't always get the right answer depending on what's happening. So,
KG, can I hop in here for a second?
sure.
Hold on. My thing was going crazy here. Okay.
KG?
Questions? I'm not
Yeah,
sure if we're beating a dead horse here with this fine tuning of pip counts.
Can I say something about the modification to the pip count?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, what I basically do is I smooth out both positions. For example, looking at this position here. Can we put it back? Yeah. Okay, we can see white's is fairly smooth and black's is ugly. Now, suppose I take 2 of those checkers on black's ace point and move them back a pip to the 2 point. That's 2 extra pips for black, but now both positions look smooth. And now I take, say, that one checker of whites and the 6 point, move it to the 5 point, and that makes it a little smoother. So I say black's position is about 2 pips worse than it should be, and white's position is about 1 pip worse than it should be. And this is roughly how I do it, which doesn't take any formulas or anything, just a little common sense.
Right, that's sort of what I was getting at when I looked at this and then looked at that as a reference point. And you can see, as Kit said, you know, you can, if you smooth out black's position by backing checkers up so that it looks more like white's position, you only have to, you know, tack on 2 pips there. You know, it may be actually a little worse than that, but still, that's a good first order approximation. Thank you. That's Kit Woolsey speaking, if anybody didn't notice.
Yeah, but okay, so I just want to point out one thing, if I may, which is that once you get an adjusted pip count, which is what Kit is talking about, then you need to know what level of pip difference, adjusted pip difference, mandates the different cube actions. Like how far ahead in the pip count, that pip count do you need to be before you can double from the middle and like that. So you know, you can read Backgammon Boot Camp, which has a great exposition of racing formulas. You can read about the Thorpe count, which is another sort of, it's a simpler adjustment than Ward or Keith, but it's still pretty good. And you know, but it's a little involved, but it's less, it's better than it's way better than nothing, and it's a lot easier than Keith or Ward or other, you know, there's some other ones too. And yeah, I guess, yeah, so there's a lot of material online, just free material like bkgm.com. You know, you can go there. You know, there's other sites. Bill Roberti has a blog. You know, there's a lot of sites where if you just look up, Google racing formulas in backgammon or something, you should be able to find a lot of good stuff.
Also,
And by the way, you know, if anybody's interested-
we've got a lot of comments saying, you know, it's great to hear all your different approaches. So I think this is extremely helpful for those of us who are still learning to count pips properly. So thank you so much for that. Are there any other final questions? Jonah is saying, find the right pip count that fits you. So keep that in mind, everyone. We can't thank you enough, everybody, for being here. We had a huge crowd tonight. So, and we will be posting this. And also everybody's asking Kent if we can put your presentation and send it out. So we will take the PDF of the presentation as well as putting the entire presentation up on YouTube. We will put it into our website so people can come and pull it down if they want it.
You know, this is Karen. I just wanted to thank KG for the presentation, but I also, since Bill Roberti has joined us this evening, I usually say two-time world champion Bill Roberti. One of the great things about having KG as a doubles partner is that it really pours over the XG file of all of our matches, inserts lots of comments, tries to learn from them. Then he runs them by Bill Roberti, gets his input, and then sends the annotated file to me. So thanks to KG, Marty, Kit, Bill Roberti, everybody who's joined us. And given the enthusiasm of this, we'll see if other participants in the mixed doubles event would be interested in going through their cube analysis as well. I see we've got Joe Russell and Antoinette Williams on. Would welcome having them do a similar type of presentation for their matches as well. So thanks to all for being here.
One final comment. If there's one position that I would look at of all the 13 we looked at that might be the most easy to learn something from for a whole lot of players, it's this one. If my screen is still being shared.
It is.
Yeah, this position is, if you can look at that, look at this, play with it on your home board, and if you can convince yourself why this is such a strong double, you will have learned a lot, because this is a double I maintain. Even some very good players might skip right over it and not realize they had a double. And then if they rolled one of the numbers that slot the prime, they wouldn't play it that way. You know, they just play safe. I guarantee you, all but a very few players that are here today, if this position came up, they wouldn't double. If they rolled something like 5-2, they would just play their checker safe. They make a big blunder by not doubling, and then they make a blunder by misplaying the roll. Look at this position. I think this is the best position in the whole lot. That's it.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for coming. Karen, we hope you feel better.
Good.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you, everybody.